Well, good evening, everybody. This is John Burgos, and welcome to tonight's edition of Beyond the Ordinary Show. And this evening, it's a really interesting connection. And Tania, I'm trying to remember how we met, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Oh my God, it's like it seems like I've known you forever, and it's like that storyline of how that connection happened is just like it's not relevant, but it'll be good to remember. But Tanya's up to some amazing things in the world, bringing consciousness, education, and a heart resonance to fields that are open to receive through very grounded applications and intuitive awareness that is really here to expand the world's consciousness. And I say this in a general way because Tania is involved in so many things with the essence of what she does. So she's an amazing opera singer. She's one of the most successful female entrepreneurs in Australia. Again, she's a performer. She's an innovator. She's developed 6 businesses, has 3 charities over 3 decades. And she works across public, private, creative, and social sectors. She founded Creativity Australia, Creative Universe, MTA Entertainment and Events, and Songroom, and works with disadvantaged communities nationally through Creative Australia's With One Voice choir social inclusion programs. And she's also very much involved in bringing the intelligence of plant medicine, particularly psilocybin and mushrooms, and I'm sure more, Tania will talk more about that, into acceptance and exploration so that we can all benefit from the intelligence that is there for us. And it comes from a very grounded and a place where we can apply that information and realize that there's something there for us. So we're going to go into lots of different places with Tania today. Most likely, we're going to open up to Q&A. And my work with Tania, we've dropped in a few times into co-creative energy. And Tania would tell you she's not psychic, but she's extremely intuitive. So what Tania does through her energy and her essence is she opens you up to being conscious of the field of potential within you and seeing a timeline or a particular thread that really serves you in your purpose, that aligns with your passion, and that you can take small action steps to truly open up. And so it's with that introduction, a little long, but I needed to explain it in this way. That I want to introduce you to Tania. And Tania, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John. And it's lovely to be with you. And I've enjoyed all of our conversations and getting to know you so far.
How did we meet each other? I forget now. It's been, do you remember?
I think someone introduced us to one another. Okay. And I can't even think who that is right now. But I'm very excited that you're going to be joining the advisory panel of Mind Medicine Australia, which is such an esteemed group of global leaders from all different professions, including psychiatrists and researchers, of course, but also, religious leaders and lawmakers and creative people and military people, and then people like you who just take people into other realms of consciousness and allow people to think outside the box to reach their full potential. So we're very excited about you being a part of our Mind Medicine Australia community as well.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be invited to participate. Again, the board of advisors, when I scrolled through it, was really impressive. It's like, how am I fitting into this? And I understand, because one thing that I want to share with you all also is also realizing where we can interject and provide resonance, cohesion, and further expansion into what's possible. And so again, when we spoke and the resonance and the creativity, again, an honor to be included and into this organization. And it also kind of makes sense. It feels so aligned. So it's wonderful. How did you get into, what inspired you to get into, I'll call it spiritual activism, because that's what you're doing.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've not been called a spiritual activist before. I've certainly been called an activist before. But I guess I got into this. I mean, there's a whole journey that has brought me to here right now today. And I think it really starts back in Vienna in the 1920s, when my grandparents, Slava and Karl Duldig, met in the studio of Anton Hanak, who was a very well-known sculptor and art teacher, who was a contemporary of Egon Schiele and Gustav Klimt. And they met and fell in love, as young students do. And then one particular rainy Sunday, my grandmother and grandfather were going out on one of their dates to the local museum. And it was, my grandmother was carrying, the big tall umbrella. And she said, what if someone was to create a little umbrella that would fit in a handbag? And she said, let's keep this a secret. And so she went around all the old lampshade shops in Vienna, and she collected the spokes of these old lampshades and started secretly inventing a foldable umbrella. And we have all our working notes. She says, I tried this today, it didn't work. Tomorrow I'm going to try this, and so on. And this went on for many months, where she was trying and failing. And I like to think of that word fail as first attempt in learning, And so anyway, she finally, in September 1929, prototyped Flirt, a foldable umbrella, the very first foldable umbrella ever invented, which is still manufactured in the same factory in Austria today. And she manufactured that, and she got the royalties from that for 10 years until 1938, when the Nazis walked into Vienna. And my family is Jewish. And so I don't have time to tell you the whole story of their escape, but my mother wrote a book about this called Driftwood just a few years ago. But effectively what happened was, my mum was just a few months old at the time, and my grandfather sculpted the bust of a border guard to really get 3 passages out from Vienna to Switzerland, which saved their lives. And when they got to Switzerland, they were contacted by the German authorities. He said, Mrs. Duldig, we believe you have the patent for the first foldable umbrella, and we'd like to buy the royalties from you. But she managed to do a deal where she still remained on as the patent holder. And if you look at the European Patents Office today, you will see that Slava Horowitz is named, that was her maiden name, as the inventor of the foldable umbrella. And indeed, she's still acknowledged in this way. We still have the prototypes and her working notes, but of course she was never to see another cent from her invention again. I always joke, when I'm presenting keynote speeches and at conferences and events, that's why I have to work today, because, if we continue to get the royalties from this foldable umbrella, well, probably wouldn't have to work. But it was really interesting, because I was presenting at a global conference on innovation a few years ago. It's probably 3 or 4 years ago, and at the Melbourne Convention Centre, and this delegate from Austria came up to me at the front of the stage at the end of my speech, and he had a little green check umbrella, and he handed it to me, and he said, this is purchased from the same factory as, that manufactures your grandmother's umbrella. This is in fact her umbrella, a later iteration of it. And then they invited me to go to Vienna to present at their conference. And then that was when I met the people from the European Patent Office, who said, wow, look at this. This is your grandmother's invention online, and all of this. Anyway, the really tragic thing about that story is that the most of the rest of the family didn't get out. And they were, of course, killed in the Holocaust. And so I guess I've carried that knowledge for a long part of my life. It's part of my DNA, and it's part of pretty much anyone who's Jewish. We carry this DNA of this, terrible tragedy and crime against humanity that was committed then. And, there is a certain element of intergenerational trauma, even though I wasn't there. You know, I've had dreams that, you know, I was there in front of the firing squad and things like that. You know, we always, as you talk about all the time, you know, carry these lives. I mean, you and I probably met, you know, in 100 other lives along the way. And, you know, so it's really, I think, been a big part of my spiritual growth has been coming to terms with what happened. I couldn't say that, you know, anything about that was okay, but we have to come to terms with trauma that occurs in our lives or in our parents or, you know, other loved ones' lives. And I think in doing that, I went on a real journey of exploration, and also because of my singing career. So, you know, I was always wanting to sing, but when I was 14, I was told that I should never bother having singing lessons by my best friend at school at the time. I talk about this in my TED talk, how singing together changes the brain. And again, you know, there was a lot of self-doubt, you know, for a long time, and just getting to believe in myself, you know, for the skills and talents that I had. And to really be a wonderful singer, you actually have to step away from your ego and just, you have to allow this human instrument to really resonate, and then you know, to really, you have to raise your frequency a lot also to get that purity in your voice, so that you can really connect with people at a much higher level. It's not just about a singer doing scales or singing beautifully. It's how you connect your voice with others. So I think the combination of the journey of my grandparents, my parents as well, who both of whom were Holocaust survivors, and escaped from the Nazis, and then my own journey to become a professional singer has led me on this spiritual quest where I've always been trying different things, you know, mantra, tantra, psychotherapy, cryotherapy, myotherapy, meditation, yoga, of course, and all those sorts of things. And then that led me really to the plant medicines. And I've never been into drugs at all. In fact, I'd never had any drugs in my whole life until about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And that was when I first had this incredible psilocybin experience in the Netherlands, where these medicines are legal. I'm just going to shut the door because my dog is barking like crazy, which I really prayed he wouldn't, but he is. Just one sec.
Yeah, go ahead and shut the door. And this is really fascinating, y'all. We're going to lead into a very grounded application and awareness through Tania's teaching. So we'll get there. So again, it led you into the psilocybin experience in the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's right. So when I first, I would never have considered taking any drugs in my life. As I said, I don't even drink alcohol. I don't drink coffee. You know, my drug of choice has always been singing, because singing actually does get you high. It gets you into an altered state, particularly when you sing with other people. It changes your brain. And so when I first heard about these medicines through a Tim Ferriss blog and a Michael Pollan article in the New Yorker, something just like, it was like a light bulb went off. And I think it was because the person who was profiled in this article was actually Jewish and had experienced a lot of intergenerational trauma through the Holocaust. And it was like, wow, you know, this is incredible. And, you know, could this be something that where I find something completely new and different ways of not only managing the trauma, you know, we all carry trauma, but could I find something completely new, different levels of consciousness that I'd never experienced, and so on. And I was really afraid of this experience. I have to tell you that, like, I was petrified. I thought, you know, am I going to lose my mind? Am I going to have a heart attack? I mean, I'd read about it thoroughly, but, you know, there's a lot of stigma and prejudice about these psychedelic medicines. And that's been there since really 1970, when Nixon had his war on drugs and criminalized these substances. So despite all my reading, I was still very nervous. You know, like, I've always been a bit of a control freak. So to let go of that and, you know, to take this dried mushroom and go into this entirely altered state was deeply frightening. But to begin with, you know, just to do it, to jump in there. But what I found was the greatest beauty and connection that I've ever experienced in my life. You know, like this, not only sense of connection to myself, but to everything and everyone and the planet. This awesome sense of wonder. I've never seen a leaf or a shell or the sky or anything the same again. You know, to really see that fractilian miracle that is nature everywhere. And the other thing that really occurred for me in this experience was when I'd first taken the medicine and I was sort of going into this altered state, suddenly these 3 boxes appeared in my visual field, and they had the words ego on them, and they had a red cross through them. And I was like, get the hell out of here, ego, get out of here. And it was like, I had to keep like smashing like these 3 ego boxes down the drain. There was these drain pipes under the 3 boxes that I could see, like a sewerage, you know, with a sewage system. And it's like, I'm pushing my ego down the drain. And so I had to keep doing that. I just kept saying, get out of here. And when I finally managed to just push them down the drain, then I like flew into these multiple realms of consciousness, astral realms, into rivers and oceans and the most beautiful colors and angels and the whole animal kingdom. It was like I could feel every cell in my body vibrating. It was just magnificent. I mean, it's indescribable. That's why these experiences are called ineffable, because you can't really describe them.
Yeah. It's wonderful. I love how you're sharing this and your description of the journeys. And for me, as I go back into when I had that moment when the dam cracked open and my intuition and my throat just lit up and I was having prophetic dreams and very esoteric experiences, having guides coming to me to teach me and to guide me. I went through a profound process with the spiritual connection that was through presence, through being available, through dream time and saying yes, to repatterning my limiting beliefs that opened up my field into receiving another form of intelligence. And that was beautiful. And I tell everybody, I didn't have my first psychedelic experience until about 5-6 years ago. Very similar as you. Yeah. But before I had that, I was having psychedelic experiences without the psychedelics. My spiritual journey took me into those realms. I was seeing vibrant colors. I was seeing guides. I was getting messages. Things were whispering, or people were whispering into my ear and guiding me. So when I finally landed in the psychedelic space and I got taken deep into those realms again, but in a different way and intensely, it's like I knew that terrain already. And I knew when that started to happen, that part of my role was to be a bridge of the judgment that occurs that people have because of the conditioning that's happening through the narrative of the war on drugs. And there's people judging, well, you can get there naturally. It's like, absolutely, yes, you don't need psychedelics. You don't. You don't. But if they call to you and the awareness is there, or if you're suffering through a trauma that you can't break through, the dam that can break open in your own consciousness through the assistance of the consciousness of the light of plants.
That's right. That's exactly
is can take you just on a whole new journey, provide a whole new level of expansion, and even crack open a dam that you're kind of on the verge of getting to, but you just don't know how to do it. That's
right. I mean, these medicines are a bridge. They're not something that you would take every day at all. It's really a vehicle. And it was really interesting. I was talking to one of the researchers that we work with, in fact, someone on our advisory panel yesterday, and he was actually saying to me, it's like it's therapy with psilocybin or therapy with MDMA. It's actually not the other way around. It's actually that psilocybin and MDMA and the other plant medicines really help you to integrate more of yourself so that you can really, through the insights that these medicines give you and the flexibility that your brain experiences through these medicine. So you get this very massive increased neural plasticity, which actually, by the way, is very similar to the neural plasticity you get through singing with other people, but it's even more amplified. So you're getting this massive neurogenesis, you know, your hemispheres are really connecting in a much more healthy way. You can see that sort of brain representation behind me, in fact, multicolored, you know, fully connected. And for most people who are feeling not at their full potential, maybe depressed or lonely or isolated, what really characterizes that is a sense of disconnection, of a sense of separation. And so that when you feel really connected and your brain starts to feel really connected, you can make changes. And so these medicines provide a window of opportunity where a trained and skilled therapist can effectively work with you to use the insights you get through this experience about your life, your work, your relationships, that you can then start to be empowered to really take action on. And that's what these medicines do. And that's why, you know, we're seeing remission rates through current trials, over 160 trials around the world. The remission rates are like 60 to 80% after just 2 to 3 medicinal treatments and a short course of psychotherapy. And compare that against, you know, 5% remission rates from existing treatments with PTSD medicines and therapies, and about 30% for depression treatments at the moment. Whereas these medicines are getting more than twice as many people well, in the case of PTSD, way more people well and out of the system to lead meaningful and happy and healthy lives. That's a gift that no one should be denied, right?
Through the fear of ignorance.
Yeah.
Through the fear of ignorance. And again, many states here in the United States are opening up for the treatment with psilocybin. And that's also what Mind Medicine Australia is working towards. So what's the mission of Mind Medicine Australia? So everybody on the show can be more familiar with it.
So our mission is to expand the treatment options that are available to doctors and their patients to alleviate the enormous mental health epidemic that is getting worse by the day. So, you know, in Australia, for example, pre-COVID, we had 1 in 5 Australians with a mental illness, 1 in 8 on antidepressants, and 1 in 4 older adults on antidepressants, effectively just being numbed out, you know, because antidepressants for most patients are palliative. They're just managing a condition, but they're not actually curing the condition. So the patient is not reaching their full potential. And of course, we know that all of us on this call would know lots of people who've probably tried multiple different medications and therapies to treat mental illness, and many people still struggle with that after decades. So what we're seeing though with the COVID pandemic is this massive acceleration. So we now have 4 out of 5 Australians saying their mental health has deteriorated. We have young people, you know, self-harming and suiciding at rates never seen before. It's truly tragic to see the suffering, the loneliness, the isolation and disconnection that people are experiencing. So our goal is to bring these psychedelic assisted therapies, psilocybin and MDMA in particular at the moment, into the mainstream mental health care paradigm, so that these become a first-line treatment alongside pharmaceuticals and psychotherapy. And that when you go to a doctor, if you're feeling sad or anxious or whatever it happens to be, that they actually do offer you this treatment with full disclosure on the risks and benefits of all kinds of treatments, not just these. I mean, like often, you know, doctors are prescribing antidepressants, but without giving full disclosure on the side effects that they might have and so on. And our other goal with that is to make sure, you know, obviously they continue to achieve the high remission rate. So that's setting up the operating protocols and making sure that all the clinics are using the right protocols, training the therapists and so on, so that people can really work with people in altered states. And then, of course, we want to make sure that these treatments are available to anyone, no matter where they're based, you know, or their financial circumstances. So there's no barriers to access. But we run, you know, a whole range of wonderful events and webinars, and we'll have to have you do one for us, and a global summit. And we have chapters that build grassroots awareness and lots of professional development. So I imagine there's a lot of therapists probably on this call And we have some wonderful both online professional development courses and other certificate in psychedelic assisted therapies. And I can tell you that becoming a psychedelic assisted therapist or having that as an adjunct to your professional qualification, whether you're a psychiatrist, psychologist, GP, or psychotherapist or nurse or whatever you happen to be, this is like probably the most sexy, popular new career.
It'll become very popular very quickly, yes.
That is emerging, you know. And then, of course, we work on the regulatory changes and try and get the regulators to make the necessary changes so that people who are suffering can get access in the medical system, as opposed to going either overseas to a country like the Netherlands, like we did, or going below ground, you know, underground, and getting treatments in the underground, which, I mean, there's some wonderful underground therapists, of course, but many people don't want to break the law, and they want to be cared for in a more of a clinical environment.
And there's a lot of underground therapists who aren't really qualified to lead people through the psychotherapy as well, but they pretend to be, or they believe that they are. And so to have someone trained and have the credentials is really important as well.
It's critical because quite often what happens in the underground is someone may facilitate the medicine experience, but then the integration doesn't really happen in the way that it needs to happen for the person going through this experience. So it can feel to some people that they're left sort of a bit undone, you know. Well, they've sort of unpacked Pandora's box, but they haven't really gone through and worked out what all that means, and, you know.
For sure. And we're talking about the plant medicine journey and what's available as one tool, everybody. And again, it can raise consciousness. And for me, I even felt it when you talked about the neuroplasticity. I felt my neural pathways actually physically repattern. I could feel the dendrites connecting in a new way, forming. It was absolutely amazing. And I'm extremely empathic and tend to be extremely lucid in the awareness of those experiences as well. So that was fascinating. We're going to also get into the entrepreneurial aspect and into what Tania brings in actualizing potential that you carry. But I want to stay on this topic just a little bit longer because it's so important and so near and dear to my heart. And I really see it as something that I want our audience on Beyond the Ordinary to, if you had any doubts or confusion or judgment against it, to be open. And even if it's not for you, to not hold the field of judgment if others are doing it. Because as we allow people the freedom without judgment, then they can find what's in alignment with them. I had a friend who leads plant-based facilitations. And one of her clients who went to go see her repeatedly was Barbara Marx Hubbard, who a lot of you may know from the personal transformation space. And Barbara was being led on these journeys when she was 86 years old.
Wow.
And she was wanting to experiment, wanting to know more and all that. So I just shared that as an awareness that age is not necessarily a factor to receive the benefits of the consciousness that's being provided.
That is so important to say that, John, because like what we're seeing, you know, is one of the really tragic things about running this charity, or one of the really sad things, I guess, is like we're getting like 10 to 20 emails, messages, calls a day from people who are like desperate for these treatments. They've, in many cases, had decades of suffering. They've tried like 14 or more different antidepressants, all types of therapies, in some cases like 75 or more electric shock therapies. Like, just imagine this, you know. And we get people often who are over the age of 60 or even 70 or 80 or more who say to us, I have been carrying this depression, this black dog, for my whole life. I just want a few years before I die to get the chance to feel what it is like to not have that blackness and that darkness, to feel what it's like to feel light and radiant and to reach my full potential. And they're still saying this at 70 or 80 years old. Like, it truly is heartbreaking when you read this, because, you know, I feel that everyone should have the chance to have access to these treatments and this healing that is available. Like, that's a basic human right for everyone.
I agree.
And, you know, the fact that these medicines, many of them are growing in fields, like, you know, psilocybin, you know, in cow patties, you know, and, you know, and that people can actually get them, but if they take them to their lips, that then becomes a criminal offence in some nations around the world. I mean, that's just That's truly like a very bad reflection of, where we're at. So we can go out and we can eat a poisonous mushroom and die, but we can't go out and pick and eat a psilocybin mushroom in some countries without it being a criminal offense.
Right.
It's very hypocritical.
Yeah. So as we talk about, again, the need and desire in people that are benefiting from this, who should not be participating in a plant therapy?
No, I mean, I've spoken a lot about this with a lot of the leading researchers in the world, many of whom are on our advisory panel and ambassadors and so on. And like at the moment, people with bipolar and schizophrenia and psychotic conditions are actually excluded from the trials. But a number of the researchers do say that they believe that, in fact, they are starting to investigate schizophrenia. And there are many people that I know of who have bipolar, who have worked with ayahuasca, for example, but it has been very guided. I would just say to everyone out there, if you're interested in working with these plant medicines, please do it with proper supervision, with someone you've really checked out. Do your due diligence and make sure that you have proper integration sessions. If the guy that you're seeing can't do that integration, then make sure that your counselor or therapist that you trust works with you immediately following these medicine sessions, so that you can ensure that you get the maximum out of them and that you really use them safely in an intentional way. This is not at all about recreational use or getting high or tripping out or anything like that. This is really about going, I always set an intention actually with my medicine journeys, and I don't have very many medicine journeys. I would only have medicine journeys every few months, because I feel it takes me time, even though I've had quite a few medicine journeys now, just to integrate those experiences, and I don't want to trivialize them. But quite often my intention might be, and you can set different intentions, but I don't like to be too specific, but I might just say when I'm holding a cup of medicine, as part of the ceremonial aspect, I might say, please show me whatever I need to be shown, heal whatever needs to be healed. And then it's like, really, you're asking the medicine really to show you. Like, they do say that the medicine gives you what you need, not what you want. What you want. And so, and some of the medicines, like psilocybin has been called the God molecule, so has 5-MeO-DMT and things like this. It's like, I think it's showing you the God within, that we're all divine, and if we surrender to that godliness, that deep divinity within each of us, that sacredness that is this incarnation that we're in, the incredible gratitude of that experience is really profound. And you mentioned before too about the spiritual aspects of that experience. Well, that actually takes the form sometimes in these medicine journeys of being surrounded by spirits, both spirits who are very benevolent, sometimes malevolent spirits, and sometimes spirits who are just lost, who are just desperately trying to find the light, and I've had sometimes some spirits, and sometimes particularly young spirits, I guess young people who've died, I don't even know them, who've clung on to me, and I've been able to let them somehow direct them back up into the light.
Yeah,
And
like you carry a resonant field for what's available, again, expanding potential and showing doorways of access into realms that feel like they're part of the soul's journey, part of the soul's path, and transitioning into and leaving behind the density that you're really prepared not to participate in anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. I actually have a song on my album Heaven on Earth called Soul Journey, which I think you've got
nice.
You'll have to share it with your community at some point. But yeah, it is that soul journey that we're all on, and that this is eternal. There is just, there's beginnings and endings, and it just goes round and round in a circle, like Ram Dass so famously said. And I was very lucky to spend a week living at Ram Dass's house a couple of years before he passed. And
nice.
Yeah, and spending time just being in presence with him. And it was such a privilege because, and if for those of you that haven't heard Ramdas's work, I really encourage you to listen to his podcasts and watch his web, YouTube videos and stuff, because you will learn so much from him.
Yeah. And so going into the intelligence of this and your experiences and what you work with mind medicine, again, with leading researchers and scientists. And if y'all go to the website, you'll see some names that you're going to recognize on that list from the psychological and from the scientific community. So it's really a who's who really stepping up and saying this is a viable solution for these things that have been plaguing us that we cannot find a solution from the traditional therapies and drugs that aren't really as effective as we had hoped. They may be making the pharmaceutical companies a lot of money. They might be keeping people in therapy for years instead of months, but that doesn't work anymore. And we're at such a place of an epidemic that a new solution needs to be integrated. And the fear-based projections of the judgments that we've had against these things that were seemed as a moral detriment to society, the way that it was painted, is quite actually having the opposite effect. So this is such an important part and one aspect of your journey, and one part of the amazing entrepreneurial spirit that you carry within, that you've inherited from your grandmother, perhaps, and probably so much more.
Definitely.
And you've also inherited that creative place through your singing, through other things that you create. Again, you're one of Australia's most successful female entrepreneurs. I want to ask you, because this is so important for so many people in our community, and I want to learn from it as well. With all of the family trauma that you've inherited, with carrying the awareness in yourselves of that history and how you have navigated it, it could have been really easy for you to say, I've got trauma that I need to heal and I don't know how to break through, and I'm stuck and I'm going to be in that stuck loop. How did you break out of that? What is it that makes you be successful at so many different things simultaneously?
I mean, thank you for saying that. I mean, I think a lot of it is, I have these incredible parents and grandparents who were wonderful role models and really wanted us to do what we loved. So they didn't force things onto us. So though I did a law degree, they didn't force me to do law. When I said I wanted to do singing, they just said, okay, they were supportive, and so they held my hand on that journey. But I think it's just the fact that there has been a lot of obstacles. I don't think that, I'm not standing here having this conversation with you. I do feel very lucky and very grateful, but there've been a lot of obstacles along the way. I've been knocked down plenty of times, from that time that I mentioned, when my best friend told me I should never bother having singing lessons, to one of my singing teachers, my very early singing teacher, saying to me that I'd never make it past the chorus of the opera, but I did. But, to lots of people saying that every time that I set up a new entrepreneurial organization, they'd say, oh, this is never going to work. And, there'd be all the doubters and people, detractors, and trying to pull you down and saying, you're not going to do this, and just pushing through that because you believe in something that's greater. And my focus has always been to really, I think what really drives me is I love seeing people break through their own barriers, their own self-limiting beliefs. I've had a lot of self-limiting beliefs at times, I'm not good enough, that I couldn't sing for a long time, that this was not going to work and stuff. But I've learned through wonderful guides and teachers that I work with regularly, I don't call them gurus, but people who've been with me all along the way, that have helped me to develop tools and skills that allow me to break through those self-limiting beliefs and to shine. And then when I work with other people, usually you can see the radiant potential of, I think, every human being. But, everyone, we all have our blocks, we all have our shadows, and we have to come to terms with all parts of ourselves, and we have to embrace the shadow for ourselves, rather than projecting it onto others or blaming others or going back into our narrative of how bad our life has been, how much abuse we had, how much trauma we've had. We actually have to go, okay, this is actually a gift for me. You know, this is something that has allowed me to become lighter and to become healed and so on. And I accept that bad things happen to teach me that I've got way more to learn, you know. And I think one of the things the medicines do teach you is just how little you know.
For sure. But
You know?
one thing that you're talking to, and I really want to get into the mastery of your awareness, even though you're coming across very humbly in it, not intentionally, but it's just who you be as well. Again, the medicines will remind us of that humility a lot of times, but I also think that you just naturally exude it in a very beautiful way. But you're aware that it's not just about you, you're being of service.
Yeah.
And it's that service that provides a motivation that is not something that you have to push through or break through, but it's the inspiration that provides the platform. So as an example, in my own personal life, I used to hate speaking in public. It made me nervous. I'd stumble. I'd be speaking about topics that I was asked to speak about in corporate events or these other things, but I was speaking about something that I didn't feel I was providing anything. It felt more like I had to look good so that I can present myself in a certain way, rather than really sharing something authentically from the heart that would inspire and do these things. And so great speakers I'd be like in awe of. But when I found this space and this thing, I'll call it, opened up inside of me, I couldn't help but scream it from the rooftop, because I wanted other people to have the breakthroughs and the shifts that I was having. And so that being of service superseded any nervousness, any block that would have me speak in front of other people. And I love it now. I love being on stage. I love talking. It's like, yes, ask me a question and I'll talk for hours. It's wonderful. But again, it's that being of service and really tapping into that. And it's like, wait, what's leading here? Is it my ego looking for something? Or am I really just being open to allow what is, and with the just innate understanding that it's helping others?
Yeah. And I think that was, I mean, like when I spent that week with Ramdas, which was just such a gift, it was all about being of service, you know, everything. I mean, he dedicated his whole life to that. I pretty much dedicated the last 20 something years to being of service. You know, I founded my first charity in 1999, the Song Room. And ever since then, really, the majority of my work has been about being of service. I do an incredible amount of pro bono work, you know, setting up these charities and so on. And I do it because it gives me an incredible amount of just light and heart to actually see, to give people a chance to really go into their flow, into their full being. And one of the things that my husband and I, both social entrepreneurs and philanthropists, is love backing emerging, you know, entrepreneurs and people with potential to break through their barriers and back them to start, you know, either their own businesses or some dream of theirs that they can follow through and really deliver on. And we just love seeing people like going from often being victims, you know. And I've seen that a lot with my second charity, with my With One Voice choirs, my Creativity Australia With One Voice social inclusion choirs. Lots of people coming in, you know, with that whole sort of victimhood. But then gradually, as they spend more time in the choirs and feel the goodness and the hearts, all of a sudden they transform, that they become much lighter and they start to be of service to others, and they're no longer victims at all. They're victors, you know, they're like standing in their light, and you can see that circle of reciprocity. So when people go from being victim to victor, they will often feel enormously grateful and want to then help others to also step out of that.
I just wrote an article about this for a magazine. That's so funny. And it goes right back into that about providing a platform for others to succeed. But in your mastery, and this is actually going to take me into your special offer, But again, in what you do to invite community to, again, go from victim to victor, it's okay, you've provided an organization that provides a platform for them, but the foundation of the organization is the energy that you and your husband carry. But it's you on this call that you carry, is that you can feel the potential, feel that foundation of the energetic of these organizations and charities that you've started have that foundation of, let me share with you on a vibrational level what's possible. And in our conversations, you've done that with me. It's like there's something else that opens up, and it's like I get the shiver, I've gotten the tingles up and down my spine a few times when we spoke. It's like, yes, it's like, and it opens into what else is available, and it breaks through wherever some of those feelings of stuckness in and inspires action. So if you would, what I want to do, April, if you don't mind, put the link for the special offer in the chat box. And there it is. And everybody click on the link and sign up for time with Tania. And again, when you click on the link, it's in the chat box, or go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Tania27, TANIA 27. It'll take you to that same page. And Tania, what can people expect from this time with you? And I'll call it a session, but it's not, it's like you're consultant, you're providing the energetic field, you're holding someone up to their potential. It's like, it's so multifaceted.
Yeah, I mean, I think I often call it helping to find your voice. And by that, I don't just mean your singing voice, I mean your true creative voice. Like, what is it that you're really here to share and to be of service to others? What is your special gifts? And we all have special gifts. Like, all of us, as Picasso said, we're born as artists. Our challenge is to remain so throughout our lives. And, I guess my offer is to help you to find more of your truth, more of your innate wisdom and joy, and really help, I guess, have a co-creating session where I can help you to unleash more of your potential and brainstorm where you could go. And I mean, John and I have had some real fun with that ourselves. And in fact, I mean, every time I get on the phone with John, we're like co-creating like crazy. Watch this space, in terms of, where we can both go. Like, I think, having these sessions too, like it's a very mutually beneficial process, because I learn as much as whoever I'm working with.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful. And again, and when you guys are on the page, you'll notice that one of the bylines is wake the F up, finding your true voice in time of crisis. And Tania and I actually co-created this together, and it was so resonant because it is. And so many of us, if we're feeling a stuckness or an anxiousness, or like this bubble that wants to pop but just can't find the relief yet, this is what's coming through. There's an intelligence that's like you have access to now, but we haven't really been guided to a place that would show us how to get to the other side of it. So this is a fantastic opportunity, again, to work with one of Australia's most successful female entrepreneurs who's so connected in so many realms. And again, from my experience, can help you hold the field of potential and work towards actualizing it, not just seeing it, but actualizing it. So,
and I think it's important to say too, just in terms of, wake the F up. We are in a space at the moment, globally and metaphysically, where there is an enormous amount of stuckness. I've never seen so much polarity in the world as well, but also, so much division, so many lost souls, feeling disconnected and alone. And I think what we all are craving is that sense of meaning and purpose and connection. We deeply want that back in our lives, and many of us don't feel that at the moment. So I think that just finding that bridge again, I love that idea of creating that bridge you know, that bridge to our full potential and our full light.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. So not only will y'all get a session with Tanya, also Tanya, you have some additional items on here.
Uh-huh.
You
Look.
have Heaven on Earth.
Yes.
What is Heaven on
Oh,
Earth?
yes. So Heaven on Earth is an album that I created a couple of years ago that has some of the most beautiful songs on it. That will really transport you also into these realms and will help raise your frequency, whether you're meditating or doing yoga or just wanting to just reflect and be illuminated and find more light. So that's, and also there's Flying Free as well, which is another album I created, which also helps you to feel, I guess, more freedom and freedom to be present in this exact moment and raise your vibration. So both of those are there. And then there's also The Breezes at Dawn Have Secrets to Tell, which is inspired by some of the incredible wisdom and poetry of Rumi and Gibran and Ramdas and others, and was improvised with some other musicians in the US actually just before the pandemic. So yeah, there's some lovely stuff there, and I think there's another one. Hang on.
There's two more.
Solitary Harmony. So Solitary Harmony, I actually created during lockdown with my musical director, and again some really famous poems, like The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost and The Guest House, and other beautiful poems there by very famous poets that I recite with my musical director who composed the music. And then item 6, which is Soundsations, which is a fully meditative, deep experience of relaxation and peace. That was my first solo album. So yeah, that's very ethereal and will take you out. In fact, I remember in one of the reviews, the reviewer said, whatever you do, don't listen to sound stations in the car because you'll drive off the road.
Well, there you go. This is wonderful. Again, just a session with you alone, with the pricing on it. Y'all, this is $147 for everything, including the session with Tanya. But just the session alone is far exceeds the value of the payments. And to add these additional components and the harmonics and the vibrations, the sound stations into it, it's really a journey for the heart and soul, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people use these albums for, you know, as I say, just their own personal development, personal growth sessions, whatever that happens to be. And also for medicine ceremonies, like some of the songs are really beautiful. And I do create some very special curated playlists for medicine ceremonies. So if anyone on this call wants to reach out, I'd be happy to share my very special medicine playlist with you as well. So you can reach out to me or John and let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the link for the special offers in the chat box, or go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Tania27. And I'll take you to that same link. And again, April's typed it in the chat box at the bottom as well, so you can access it. Tania, we had a few people with their hands up, and I'd love to open up for questions. And I think there's someone on the line. Well, I know that there's probably some resonance with the music and getting her workout and composing. So let me get her and a couple of other people here promoted as panelists, and we'll get into a little bit of Q&A. And we'll get it going here. And Eileen, let's get you to unmute. Welcome. Eileen, if you'll unmute and turn your video if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be beautiful. I'd love to see you, Eileen. And any of you who want to ask questions, please.
Hi, wow. I related to so much of what you said. My God. You know, I've devoted my life to spiritual work and music. And now I just finished writing a book, my first book,
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm so in touch with my previous lifetime, which was in the Holocaust. So I'm relating, I'm like tripping out on what you're talking about. It was amazing. I mean, I have to work with you. It's not even a question.
No, I'd love to, Eileen. I mean,
I knew it would resonate for you, Eileen. I knew it. Yeah.
Yes. So right now, it's a question of direction. You know, it's not, I don't have a question about what I do or why I do it. It's a question of how I can direct all of this stuff in the right place. Like I wrote to ABC News because I wrote a song for children and what they're going through.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's called A Message to the Children, and it's about hope.
Yes.
You know, so many
Yeah, we
people
so
are
need
looking-
hope, right?
Yeah, so really the question for me is just about direction. Finding the right direction for all of this.
Well,
Well,
Eileen, let me ask Eileen something for clarification.
Yes.
Maybe to be a little more direct, Eileen, and maybe I'm off base and just a suggestion. Are you looking for direction, or really is the heart of the question is how do I get my work out into the world so other people can receive it?
Yes, that's the question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that is the question.
Well, Eileen, I mean, it's a really important question. And that's, I mean, I think if we have a session together, we could brainstorm that, and we can just, I mean, like, I think whenever I brainstorm with John, you know, we come up with like a number of different strategies, and we can just work out what would be the ways that you can get your creative voice more out into the world, because you obviously have a lot to give, and your history and your passion, and I can feel like just the strength of who you are, and it's just so important to get your voice out there.
For sure. You know, I mean, I taught music for 25 years, and, you know, this book that I finished was so much about looking at my entire life, you know, and where I was, where I'm going. I mean, I even had one of my students put something in my book, you know.
Eileen, I want to ask a question for you and for everybody on the call as well, and everybody listening to the replay, because this is so important, because Eileen's like, she's constantly churning out and reaching out and with hope and excitement, but how do you keep persisting after being deflated so many times, potentially?
You're asking me?
I'm asking Tanya what her perspective is around that, and then asking you how it might relate to you.
Sorry, I was just reading a question in the chat about somebody talking again about wow, how interesting, someone who's a cantor and whose folks died at the Holocaust. I'm so sorry to get distracted. Sorry, just ask me that question again, John.
So what would you say to someone that, again, they know that they just have that, they know they're supposed to share, but it's not being received? How do you get past those points of your ego and your spirit being deflated?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
persist, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Like when that singing teacher, for example, told me I should never bother having any more singing lessons, I'd never make it past the chorus, I literally walked into the street. I was with my pianist, and I said, I'm going to go and grow bananas in Byron Bay. I'm giving up. I can't do this any longer. And this has happened a few times. And the next morning I thought to myself, no, I will show this person and just myself that I am going to do this. I'm not going to let anyone snatch my dream away. You know, because if you truly believe in what your gifts are and what you have to give and share in the world, there will be a way. But you've got to be persistent. And, you know, people that know me will say that persistence is my middle name. It's like, you know, and so you can't just give up. And just because someone says no, that actually doesn't mean no. It just means not now. But it doesn't mean no. It means not now. And there's another way. So you've got to find your way through, you know. you don't have to crash through the wall, but you can find your way around the wall, under the wall, over the wall, you know, through, you know, there's this famous saying that goes, whatever is in the way is the way. And
it's not even about, it's not my ego doing this at all.
no, of course not.
It's reward. It's about helping people. It's about sharing. It's about getting it out there. I want these children to hear that song and to know there's hope.
Well, we can definitely brainstorm how the children can hear your song.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I would certainly love to hear the song myself, and then of course I'd be delighted to hear it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, what I've become very familiar with is I'm inspired to share different things or go through or have these aha moments of how I can be of service. Sometimes it's like, I've got to put it out. And then there's a time of acclimation or integration that happens like, wow, this was actually for me first.
Yes.
Actually for me. And then as I receive it, it's like, there's like a surrendering or heart opening and embodiment. And I know, Eileen, you've experienced this, but I'm sharing this with everybody. And through that embodiment, the sincerity and the humility of that sharing creates a resonant field that activates others into receiving that gift that you have blossoming within yourself.
I think it's very interesting. Like in some of the medicine playlists that I've created, I've used a lot of different artists' work, not just my own songs, but many different artists in these playlists. But it's interesting when my voice comes into the medicine ceremony and I hear my voice and I think, well, that's my voice, but it doesn't feel like me. You know, it's like something beyond me. And that's what I think you're saying, Eileen, is that this is coming from beyond you. It's your whole spirit, your past lives, all coming into creating this now, this creative voice of yours. Would you agree with that, Eileen?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the other day I sang it and I heard a voice behind me, and it was Mother Mary singing with me.
Great.
It was,
Who was singing with you?
Mind-blowing.
Who was singing with you?
Mother Mary.
Oh my God, that's my guide.
Really?
You know that I have to just share this, and then we must go to some other questions too, but I used to spend a lot of time in France, and France is full of like Catholic churches that all have like statues and paintings of Mother Mary. And every time that I would see the Mother Mary in this church, I would start singing Schubert's Ave Maria, just in the church, and whoever was there like would be going, wow, you know, like, who's this woman singing, you know, singing this Ave Maria, you know, and it was like, yeah, and I have felt her presence, like, and it's so interesting for me, like being a Jewish person. Of course, she was Jewish, and people forget that, but she was Jewish, and you know, her presence has guided me forever, and she's come and been with me in some of my ceremonies, and that has been truly magnificent. So yeah, Eileen, I think we're meant to work together.
Eileen, thank you for raising your headline, Eileen. It's great to have you on here. Tania, I have a question that came in the Q&A from Francesca. Francesca, yes. Hello, John and Tania. Thank you so much for this amazing session. I don't have video or microphone, so I hope you'll pick my question. Okay. I'm a closet singer. Me too, except I can't sing. Well, anyway, and piano player. I would so love to get back into my music more professionally and perform and write. So I really resonate with what you're saying with negative and unencouraging people. How can I get past this and find my true voice and not compare myself with great singers with amazing voices, as I don't think I have a great voice, just decent enough?
Well, firstly, we all have a voice. And this is one of the things I talk about a lot in my TED talk. Like, we were born to speak and sing. Like, our voice is part of our human DNA. And when we go to countries like Fiji or Vanuatu or Africa or whatever, you can see, you know, you hear all these tribes singing together in harmony. And they're not going, oh, I'm not good enough. You know, I'm singing out of tune. And there's none of that sort of preciousness that we carry in our Western society, where we tend to compare ourselves against celebrities that we idolize. And if I ask any audience, it could be thousands of people. How many people have been told that they shouldn't sing by either their parents, their grandparents, their teacher, their kids, whoever it is? Like 80% at least of the room will always put up their hand. So I say in my talk, our voices have been silenced. And I honestly have heard people who've come, like I used to have a whole singing practice, singing teaching practice. And I'd have people come along to me that say, you know, my mother told me I couldn't sing for like 30 years, or I've been told I couldn't do this. And really, it just, once people tune in with other people, your voice will start to come through. Like I have heard people transform very quickly, and it's about self-belief, and it's about tuning in though. And I think that I really encourage you not just to sing on your own in the shower or in the car or whatever, but really just join a choir that's non-auditioned and just start singing with people and develop confidence in your own voice. And, you know, no one's listening to your particular voice in a group. So you just start to tune in with them. And as you tune in more, then you tune into yourself more, and you know, take some lessons with someone as well. Like, you know, find out who's the most, you know, gifted but inclusive singing teacher that's not, you know, choosing you based on what you are now, but can see what you could be. And someone who's going to believe in you. Like, don't find the singing teacher like I found who told me, you know, not to bother having singing lessons anymore, or my girlfriend who told me not to bother having singing lessons as well. You've got to find people who will walk hand in hand with you and who are going to support your journey of finding your voice, whatever that voice is. And remember, it's not just about singing, it's about, as you unlock more of your singing and speaking voice, and John, that fear that you talk about is called glossophobia, by the way. That's the official name as fear of speaking or singing in public. But as you find more of your voice, your singing and speaking voice, you'll find more of your own gifts as well. I hope that answers some of that question, but feel free to reach out and I can answer.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What comes up also from Francesca, let's get past the narrative that you don't want to compare yourself with anybody anymore or with great singers, and just say, whenever that comes up, you go, oh, okay, I recognize the statement. I recognize that I'm carrying, that I don't want to compare myself, which means that I am, and just say, okay, I'm not going to judge that anymore. It's like, okay, I let that go. And because when we keep repeating the stories that we're doing, that we're just reinforcing it. And so there's something in the field that can relax just by no longer owning that narrative.
And also the narrative, Francesca, that your voice isn't good. That's actually a self-limiting belief. And, you know, like when that comes up, you can turn that around and say, my voice is my voice.
Oh my God,
and,
it's Tania, I remember my daughters when they were little singing, and their voices were not angelic in the way that was in tune and operatic and all this, but my God, it was so precious to me to hear them singing.
How beautiful, yeah.
It lit me up. The joy that I felt, the freedom of expression that they had, just being themselves was.
Yeah, embrace yourself for everything, you know, that you are, and then just see where you can go with that. Your voice is your voice, and where could that voice go? What could it show you and teach you?
Yeah, and I even use the analogy of birds singing outside in a tree. You know, the bird doesn't stop to sing because another bird is singing prettier, supposedly. It just sings. It has no basis for comparison other than just being and naturally organic, expressing itself.
Yeah, that's right. Are the birds happy because they sing, or does singing make them happy?
Right, exactly. Exactly. Oh, this is so good. We can go on this one, Francesca writes. Thank you. Let's go to another live caller. Jenny, let's go to you. Hi, Jenny. And we can't hear you. We hear your lips moving, but I don't read lips.
Maybe your mic is not on.
You need turn your microphone, unplug your mic.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not on speaker.
We can hear you.
Okay. So my question is, if you could tell me if you can sense or see any reason for my quitting choirs, which I've been a part of since I was in the 4th grade, over this past year and a half. I mean, some of it was due to COVID,
Yeah.
but part of me, oh, here this, oh, okay, part of me did it on purpose. And
Yeah, well, I want to stop you right there. And Tanya, I don't want you to answer this actually. Jenny, why do you know that you quit? And let's just empower you into your own awareness, because you don't need to ask anybody, you know.
Mm.
And if you want support around that, I'm sure Tanya can help you with that.
Because I feel your sadness, Jenny.
thanks, John. John is really good at diving deep. I didn't like the choir director. I felt there was this really
Judgment.
Yeah. I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And I didn't know how to change it. And she basically fired a volunteer choir member.
She won.
She fired. She told him to quit.
Voted them off the island.
Pardon me?
Voted them off the island.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And
yeah,
it was just so disheartening. And
so you have an awareness as to why you quit.
Yeah.
So Tanya, what do you see in the potential field for Jenny? Where would you guide her in 2 minutes? And of course, the opportunity to go way deeper in private session.
Oh, sure.
Right.
I mean, Jenny, like I feel your sadness, like you should be singing for sure. Like it obviously gives you enormous joy as a singing done with in the right like-minded community. And I mean, easy answer is you've got to find another choir that gives you joy, that you feel really welcomed and accepted and part of. And then, just be a shining light within that choir. Where do you live? In what place? In what city?
San Diego. And
okay.
I mean, I've always wanted to join the LA choir that does stuff with symphonies and stuff like that. But I just feel so angry because I've always had such good choir directors. I've always had them sort of a alto leader type of thing. So it's not that I need to practice with the choir, but I know how important it is.
It is. And you need that connection too. So it's not just about, it's not just your voice, which your beautiful alto voice, but it's actually connecting with people in that regular rehearsal or session that is going to be important, especially since we've all gone through these lockdowns and, been so isolated from people. And I know our 30 choirs through Creativity Australia all had to go online during the pandemic. And like, as you know, Jenny, like singing, and Eileen and everyone on this call who sings, you'd all understand that singing in a choir online in your own lounge room with your own little voice versus singing in a room with everyone together is like not the same. It's better than nothing, but it's not the same. And so I think it's really important to just go back, find this LA choir or whichever choir it is that you can, and join the choir.
Yeah. Thank you.
And come and chat with me. I'd love to have a session with you. You seem like
I'd love to too.
Lovely person. And maybe you could start it with one voice choir in San Diego.
Yeah.
Somebody just put one in.
They did.
I'm Catholic, by the way, so I prefer Catholic choirs, but
I don't think singing has a denomination, but it's up to you.
Yeah, true.
That absolutely
singing is the language of the heart.
Yeah, singing's religion is love. So there you go.
Absolutely. Thank you again for that, showing that limiting.
Thank you for being so vulnerable, Jenny, and sharing your sadness with us. It really is meaningful.
Yeah, and it's funny how the question for Eileen is like, okay, where we get disheartened, what do? We want to give up. It's like the disillusionment sits in. It's like, no, it's refinement, it's alignment that's happening because it wants to meet you and what's available in our potential, rather than take us down a road where we keep siphoning our energy for the sake of an old trauma that's no longer serving you in consciousness.
And John, also, you know, one of the things that I sort of see from this call, and also some people in the chat and so on as well, is that there's quite a few like-minded, obviously you've got a group of very like-minded community, but I think there's a lot of people in this community that could support one another, particularly with music and singing and creative expression. And, you know, maybe John, just an idea for you, you don't have to take this on, but my two cents would be,
that's wonderful, actually. And to
could you
put it
create
out,
a support group, you know, for people who are creative and want to do some projects together maybe as well.
yeah, and I want to invite any of y'all who that resonates for, on Facebook, join the group, the Beyond Tribe, which is a splinter of my Facebook page, and there's like community there. And if you guys want to start a subgroup and communicate from there, there's an opportunity to do that, and you know, grab the bull by the horn and start.
John, you know, John, just more on that, just brainstorming, I hope you don't mind, but
I love it, yeah.
Is, you know, maybe we could actually run a joint session together at some point for creative beings in your community, not just singers, but, you know, all sorts of creative beings. That is like where we could do a brainstorming just with a small group of people and see how we can join the dots a bit more for people so that they get more support from one another.
I think that's a great idea. That's something that we'll talk about putting together. Thank you for that. Tanya can come up with these all day long. It's amazing. This is wonderful. Jenny, thank you so much. I've got kids scrolling by, excuse me, in the background. It's Joy. Destiny, let's go to your question. And before you unmuted, but that's cool. I want to remind everybody of the special offer of working with Tanya. It's a 30-minute session. You have the albums and the recordings, the harmonics, the resonance of music and poetry also to support you. Read through the special offer so you find out what else you receive other than the session. And it's just a gift on top of a gift on top of a gift, which includes this expansionary potential activating session with Tanya. It's $147. There's a 2-payment option. And you can find the link in the chat box or go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Tanya27. And Destiny, I'm sorry to interrupt after I called you so rude to me, but I had to do that.
It's okay, thank you. I was wondering, I seem to be having some serious throat issues, and I feel like it may be past life issue traumas. And I was wondering if you can sense something with regards to that.
So my comment there would probably be, if you feel that that's where it's coming from, that's probably where it's coming from. Right, trust yourself. But have you thought of doing some past life regression, Destiny?
I'm doing a lot of healing, a lot of soul retrieval, a lot of, yeah.
Because I think, you know, seeing maybe someone who can help you with some past life regression. The other person who could be valuable to you is someone I introduced to John called Maureen. I don't know what John might be able to connect.
She's amazing.
Yeah, so Maureen, I might be able to tell you where this is coming from. She's actually a medium. I'm not a medium, so I can't tell you exactly where it's coming from, but I can definitely connect you, or John can connect you to people who would be able to be resources for you. Do you feel like you've got something stuck here?
It feels like it's a connection with the heart and the throat.
Yeah, so I can actually feel that in your vibration, and I feel like what's part of it is that you're not breathing properly, fully. So you're actually, and I can see now that as you breathe, you're lifting your shoulders, and what you want to be doing is you want to be really doing diaphragmatic breathing. So when you breathe, you shouldn't be lifting your shoulders. If you look in the mirror, you want to be breathing like, imagine that there's a balloon blowing up inside the base of your ribs through your front and your back. And you can sometimes, you could wear a scarf each day so that you breathe into your back body as well. And then, so when you breathe, now if you speak, I think your voice will become more resonant. I mean, so obviously, this is something I could work on with you in a session, and I think it could really help. But just speak a little bit now with a more of a breath for me. Tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah, it's not as closed off.
Yeah, see, it's become more resonant already just from the breathing now. So all you're doing is you're basically cutting yourself off here. Instead of like the instrument goes right from, if you imagine your feet being planted into the earth, so that your feet extend right into the earth, like the roots of your body, right through the center of the earth, right through your whole being, so that it's all lined up, rather than feeling like it's just from here upwards.
I agree. Yes, that does make a difference, and you're right. I
Yeah,
didn't
can feel
realize
it
that
straight away.
until you mentioned it. I didn't realize that was.
Yeah,
But I
you were
feel it
cutting
now
your
that you
voice
said
off
it.
from your body. Did you hear that, John, that change?
Oh, I can totally hear it. And one thing that I want to bring light to, this is so important. And all of y'all listening right now, this is all the spiritual work that we do, the soul recovery, the forgiveness, like the plant medicine space, requires the integration and embodiment phase. And so again, we talked about the importance of having the support for integration. When you do soul recovery work, when you do forgiveness work, when you go into those deep patterns, there's a need for integration. Also, if we skim the integration, we're constantly chasing something that's already wanting to wake alive. And so Tania's awareness of bringing you into your body and having you go through a breathing technique to bring you back in is going to help the soul recovery work that you've already done that just hasn't quite landed yet.
I mean, if you're not breathing, it's very hard if you're not breathing properly, it's very hard for energy to be shifted and transmuted through you. Like the breath is really at the heart of all transformation and alchemy.
Yeah. But again, I want to take it into how important it is to do integration, no matter what type of consciousness altering work you having to be doing.
Yeah.
It's important to be with it too. It's like, okay, I've received this. Let me sit with it, because a lot of times we did it. Thank you very much. And we want to go on. Are you having a relationship with your soul fragment that you've recovered? Are you integrating your child into it? Are your body practices, your embodiment practices, your breathing, your movement, your nutrition in alignment with what wants to come in? Because if there's dissonance, you're going to feel the dissonance. If there's resonance, it's going to integrate and you're going to feel the shift.
And that includes, the food that you eat and everything, the air that you breathe.
Yeah, I love it where you took it, Tania. Thank you so much. Destiny, I hope that helps. I think it will. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, both of you. I appreciate
such a difference in your voice. Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
Now you're finding much more of your full voice. I can feel like your being is all, aligning.
So Tania, as we're wrapping up tonight's call, I have to ask you, and again, the replay is going to be available, y'all. You know already where to find the special offer and getting the harmonic integrations, and again, the private session with Tania in the chat box. What's inspiring you next? You're working on all these different things. What's coming up and inspiring and you, and what are you passionate about at this moment?
Yeah, so I have a massive project that I'm working on at the moment, which is called Driftwood the Musical. So I mentioned before my mother's book that she wrote 4 years ago about my family, my grandmother's invention of the foldable umbrella and their escape from the Holocaust and rebuilding their lives in Australia. And that's been turned into a musical. So we commissioned a playwright, music composer and everything. And that's having its world premiere in May. So like that is a project, really, it's a gift to my mum and my family and to the world to share this story. But this story is all our stories. All our stories are all our stories, like your story, everyone's story on here and stories are part of our stories. And, so this is a really important project that I'm working on. I'm also the long-awaited book project that I've been working, well, I just keep getting too busy to finish writing my book, so that's enormous. But then, of course, Mind Medicine Australia is an enormous project. I'm the executive director of the charity, so it's a lot of work. And I also have the world premiere performances of my new show called Songs for Psychedelics, which is really like a one-woman show that is sort of following my journey from my grandmother's invention through my singing through to psychedelic and plant medicines. And so I'm also doing that. And I've just got I'm trying to this year, because of the last 2 years of what I call repression and silencing, where so many people's voices have been silenced and censored and all of this. This year, I hope, is going to be the year of creativity for me anyway, where because, you know, I also have felt my voice being silenced and repressed quite a lot in the last couple of years. Like, that resonates and reflects what's been happening on a global level on this material plane. And so I want to travel more into my creative realms and rediscover more of what my creative voice can be and how I can be of more service through that.
That's beautiful. Oh my God, thank you so much. And I remember at the beginning of the year, my intuition told me that 2022 is the year of creativity. And so we had a big webinar about that on the membership, and it was amazing. But I love that you're talking about that. And you're such inspiration for, well, I want to say juggling, but your ability to ground in all of these different projects and somehow using time in your favor rather than feeling like you're a prison of scarcity of time. It's
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm certainly running against the clock a lot.
But it seems to work for you well as well. So Tania, again, you're an inspiration. I'm so blessed to know you and to be able to co-create with you, and grateful for the potentiality that's open for me personally and for our audience here on Beyond the Ordinary. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, John. And thank you all, everyone. Blessings. Namaste. Much love and light to you all. I really love what you're doing, John, in the world. And I hope that we and your community and we can do more creative stuff together, because I think there's an enormous amount of potential. I
agree. All right, everybody, have a beautiful evening. Namaste. I love you guys. And perhaps you can sing yourself to bed tonight. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much, everyone.